All right. Good afternoon, brothers. I'm going to be talking today about St. Bernard of Corleone. And I want to share with you part of his life, not all of his life, but especially focusing on some of the early years of his life and some of the ways that we can learn from his early life. So he was born in Corleone, which is a little town in Sicily. Now, Francis, I know Sicily and Italy are two very different places. I had a spiritual director from Sicily, and he made sure to tell me, no, Sicilians and Italians, very different. So I don't know if you feel the same way. But he was born in a town in Sicily. And I suggest for you guys, who are studying the Capuchin Saints, if you use this book, this book is very well written. But the author of the article or the biography of St. Bernard called Sicily, he said, pulp novels and sensational movies have pictured the town of Corleone as the capital of gangsterland. So this guy grew up in the capital of gangsterland, and frankly, he was a good candidate to be a gangster in many ways. He was described, and actually I have a picture of him here, he was described as a big, burly guy with rough features and having very calloused hands. So he had a lot of features that could make him a good, quote-unquote gangster. He maybe looked the part. He had a quick temper, and he was really good at fighting, kind of like Joe Pham, not the quick temper part, but the good at fighting part. And he was known as a street brawler, frankly. But why is he St. Bernard of Corleone? Because he used his quick temper and his fighting, he used to defend others, to defend the oppressed. And so it's really amazing to me that this young guy in the capital of gangsterland, who maybe would have made he had a good image and could have easily been recruited to be one of the Sicilian mob, if you will, actually was a really shining example for the young men of Corleone because he fought on behalf of the oppressed. There's a quick story of him. There was Spanish soldiers that had a garrison in Corleone during the time he lived there, and there's a story of him defending a young woman who was being harassed by two soldiers. The soldiers would often steal fruit from the vineyards, and so there were stories of him literally fighting off some of these soldiers who were trained soldiers clearly. And here St. Bernard was a cobbler, and yet he's very talented in fighting, and so he was able to fight off these soldiers that are robbing the people of Corleone. So he very much used his gifts of fighting and his gifts of passion to be able to defend the oppressed. Again, in this book, it talks about his parents' reaction to his quick temper. It says his hot temper caused considerable concern to his parents, though all agreed that he never put his hand to the weapon except to defend someone from wrong or to come to aid of some person. And so when I hear St. Bernard described in this way of him using the gifts given by God to help the oppressed, it made me think of some of the brothers we have, like Tom Betts using the gift of his intelligence and education to defend the oppressed in court. Or you have a guy from Jersey province, Brother Ronald Giannone. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. But he's the one that started Ministry of Caring, right? He's got real gift of people, real gift of fundraising, and was able to start Ministry of Caring to take care of the oppressed, those suffering poverty in Wilmington. Or you have Sean O'Malley for nearly 30 years using his gifts of compassion, his gifts of influence, to be able to defend those that have been oppressed by the church itself, those victims of the clergy's sexual abuse. I think of Andrew using his gifts of baking to be able to. I know he's done some fundraisers recently. I know he's cooked for people experiencing poverty or food insecurity. He's defending the oppressed in that way. For me, Brian, Joe Morton, Joe Pham, Edgar, you guys in many ways are examples to me of using your gifts of either humor or of being really relaxed and laid back. Some that are oppressed by struggles of anxiety or depression, you guys really help us in that way. Like, I know when I'm feeling exhausted and I need to either vent or I need to have a laugh, like, I want to sit with you guys, at dinner. And so you're using your gifts that God has given you to be able to help those oppressed, maybe by like a mental struggle or just exhaustion, emotional exhaustion. So thank you for that. And so, it's caused me to ask the question, and I throw the question out for you guys as well, is to really see what gifts has God given me in my life, and then how can I use that to share the gifts with others? So if we're just aware of our own, first step is to be aware of your own gifts, right? And maybe that's a struggle of yours. Maybe you're too hard on yourself. You need to be open to God giving you so many gifts, right? And then seeing how can I share those gifts with others, and especially with the oppressed. I think as Franciscans, we're especially called to use our gifts to serve the oppressed. Now, the devil knows your gift as well, and he will make an attempt to use your gift for his own work. And so St. Bernard had the same kind of struggle. So he fought this guy. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the guy's name, but he fractured this guy's 2 fingers in the fight, and this guy hired a hitman named Vito Canino to take out St. Bernard before he had joined the Capuchins. This is when he was still young. So Canino shows up and challenges him to a fight, and St. Bernard was like, I have no reason to fight you. You've done nothing wrong to me. Like, he wasn't just trying to get in a fight for fight's sake, but the guy kept insulting him and trying to egg him on, and eventually St. Bernard fell and started fighting. And so he grabbed his sword and actually injured this guy's arm, permanently disabling one of his arms. And so his quick temper that was not used in a good way, he immediately regretted what he had done, crippling this man's arm, even though the guy was hired as a hitman. And so for the rest of his life, St. Bernard actually cared for this man, and they became good friends. And so it's caused me to also reflect on my life that, I guess the one point I forgot to mention was this experience of him misusing his gift caused him to sort of sit down and say, what's going on with my life? Where is it heading? And he had this spiritual conversion. And he attributes that experience actually largely to why he entered the Capuchins at 27. And so I just started thinking my own life has some similarities to that I struggled with anger and a quick temper and was not using it to defend the oppressed and broke my wrist in the process. And that actually led me to I attribute that time in my life very much helping me find my Capuchin vocation. And so God has gifts for you, and God wants you to use those gifts to defend the oppressed. And the devil has a plan for you, and he wants to use your gifts to injure people, to hurt people. And it worked with me. It worked somewhat with St. Bernard at a time in his life. But the good news is that God can take those mistakes, those times when we've injured rather than healed, that we've attacked rather than defended, and he can use that for good. And ultimately help me come to the Capuchins, and it helped St. Bernard as well.